The sun hung low over the sleepy town of Cedar Hollow, casting long shadows across the cracked asphalt of Gray Street. It was a sweltering Sunday in late July, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer and the church fans flutter like frantic butterflies. Reverend Elias Boone stood at the pulpit of Cedar Hollow Baptist, his weathered hands gripping the edges of his sermon notes. He didn't look up as he spoke, his voice steady and deep, cutting through the hum of the congregation. You better not take one more step onto this sacred ground, unless you're ready to face judgment twice. Once by me, and once by the Almighty himself. He tilted his head forward, the brim of his hat catching the morning light, and the old sheriff's star pinned there threw a glint across the hardwood floor. In the doorway, Marjorie Hensley froze mid-stride, her sensible loafers squeaking against the threshold. Behind her, her posse's self-appointed enforcers of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association halted like deer caught in a spotlight. They wore matching navy polos and carried clipboards, a suburban militia armed with bylaws instead of bayonets. Marjorie's eyes locked on the star, and for the first time in years, the undisputed queen of Willow Creek looked rattled. Her shoulders slumped, her clipboard trembled, and the air seemed to thicken with the weight of unspoken history. 3 days earlier, Elias had made what he now considered a rookie mistake. He'd thrown a Saturday night gospel revival in the church parking lot, a raucous affair, complete with a sizzling barbecue pit, a bouncy castle for the kids, and Sister Nadine strumming her resonator guitar like she was settling a score with the WYL. The event had been a hit. Folks danced under strings of Edison bulbs, gnawed on ribs until their fingers glistened, and shouted hallelujah between bites of blackberry cobbler. Elias saw no harm in it, neither did the 100 or so attendees who'd left with full bellies and lighter hearts. But Marjorie Hensley, president of the HOA and self-proclaimed guardian of Cedar Hollow's moral fiber, saw it as an act of war. She'd stormed the church that Sunday morning, her posse in tow, ready to lay down the law. There was Tim from Lot 14, a lanky man in his 40s who still lived in his mother's basement. Ruth from Lot 9, who'd once called the sheriff over a neighbor's wind chimes. And Kyle, a wiry teenager with a drone and dreams of joining the CIA. They looked less like a task force and more like a misfit book club with too much time on their hands. As Elias began his ceremonial, fiery retelling of David and Goliath spotted Marjorie's shadow stretching across the chapel doors. She marched in, clipboard tucked under her arm like a general saber, her lips pursed into a thin, judgmental line. Elias didn't flinch. He leaned forward, shrugged off his jacket, and draped it over the pulpit, revealing the sheriff's star pinned to his hat. It wasn't something he wore often, too many memories clung to it, sharp and heavy like bursts, but today it felt right. Marjorie stopped dead, her eyes widening as if she'd seen a ghost rise from the pews. Elias Boone, she whispered, her voice cracking like dry twigs. As in Sheriff Boone? The one who took down the meth ring out by Tanner's Creek? The one who got shot in the thigh and still ran down Jimmy Tate barefoot through the mud? He gave her a slow, deliberate grin, the kind that carried both warmth and warning. The very same Marjorie. But these days, I chase souls, not felons. All I carry now is this Bible-land of patience that's wearing real thin. The congregation fell silent, even Sister Nadine pausing her gentle strumming. Elias hadn't planned to turn the Sarah VYC into a standoff, but Marjorie had brought the fight to him, and he wasn't one to back down. She tried to rally, her voice rising. You're in violation of multiple ordinances, Elias. Noise levels, unpermitted gatherings, that monstrosity of a bouncy cast lights, all documented here. She waved her clipboard like a battle flag. Elias raised a hand, cutting her off. Marjorie, this is a church, a legal house of worship. Your HOA rules don't reach past that sidewalk out there. This building's been standing since your neighborhood was just swamp and pine. You've got no jurisdiction here. Laughter rippled through the pews, soft at first, then bolder. Marjorie's face turned crimson, her posse shifting uncomfortably behind her. Tim scratched his neck. Ruth stared at her shoes, and Kyle's drone hovered awkwardly near the ceiling until it clipped a rafter and clattered to the floor. "You're inciting disorder," Marjorie snapped, clinging to her last shred of authority. "I have the right to—" "You have the right," Elias interrupted, his tone firm but calm, "to sit down, enjoy the CRVYC, maybe let a little grace sink in before your heart gives out from all that indignation. Or you can march back out and file your complaints with the county. Just make sure they know who you're filing against." Her eyes flicked to the sheriff's star again, and something in her broke. She turned on her heel, no parting shot, just a huff and a stiff retreat, her posse trailing behind like scolded pups. The CRVYC went on, but the air buzzed with tension. Afterward, folks lingered, whispering about Elias's past. "Still got a gun under that robe, Reverend?" "Old Mrs." Carter asked, half teasing. He chuckled. "No, ma'am, but I keep a slingshot handy for giants." They laughed, but Elias knew this wasn't the end. Marjorie wasn't the type to slink away quietly. Sure enough, the next morning, a typed letter was taped to the church door, its edges fluttering in the breeze. "Saw you are hereby warned that continued disregard for Willow Creek HOA regulations will result in escalating penalties, including liens, legal action, and lawn citations. Signed, Marjorie Hensley, President and Arbiter of Standards." "Saw." Elias peeled it off, shaking his head. She didn't just want him gone, she wanted the church boarded up, the hymns silenced, the potlucks outlawed. War had been declared, but Elias wasn't fazed. He'd faced down worse than Marjorie Hensley. Armed robbers, hostage standoffs, even a rabid bobcat that once terrorized the county jail. She had her bylaws. He had his faith and a few secrets about her precious HOA that could topple her throne. Marjorie didn't waste time regrouping. By Monday, her clipboard had morphed into a tactical binder color-coded tabs, laminated pages, a highlighter swinging from a lanyard like a pendant of power. She was a woman possessed, calling county officials at dawn, emailing zoning boards, even pestering the health department about whether a bouncy castle counted as a public health hazard. Neighbors started spotting her lurking near the church, binoculars pressed to her face, muttering into a walkie-talkie like a Cold War spy. One evening, she sent a certified letter claiming the church was harboring unauthorized livestock, a trio of therapy goats Elias had brought in for the kids' Sunday school. When he confronted her, she glared and hissed. Even Noah had to register his ark. By midweek, her campaign escalated. She dispatched Kyle to fly his drone over the church during Wednesday night Bible study. The kids' piloting skills were shaky at best, and the drone snagged on the steeple's weather vane, spinning wildly before crashing into the parking lot. The church ladies set up lawn chairs and sipped iced tea, watching the fiasco unfold like a live comedy show. "Higher, Kyle, higher!" Marjorie barked as he fumbled with a ladder, but the drone was a Ganerno footage, just a pile of plastic and a doula $250 repair bill. That same night, something strange happened. Marjorie slipped into the church, disguised in a paisley scarf and oversized sunglasses, looking like a soap opera VY laying on the lam. She took a seat in the back pew, clearly hoping to blend in, but the Wednesday bingo crowd, mostly seniors with eagle eyes, clocked her instantly. "Ain't that the HOA lady?" Sister Clara muttered, loud enough to turn heads. Marjorie shrank lower, but she didn't bolt. She stayed through bingo, a short talk on forgiveness, and even clapped when misses. Lula won a jumbo pack of oatmeal cookies. After the final amen, Elias approached her row. "Need something, Marjorie?" he asked, his tone neutral. She hesitated, clutching her scarf. "Just observying," she said stiffly. He raised an eyebrow. "With sunglasses and a bingo card?" She sighed, dropping the pretense. "I wanted to see what kind of nonsense you're peddling behind these walls." Elias chuckled. "Mostly grace, Marjorie. Sometimes cornbread. You're welcome to stay, even if it's just to snoop." He left her there, standing under the porch light, her expression unreadable. The next morning, a county inspector showed up, courtesy of Marjorie's latest salvo: 3 complaints about the church's unregulated grill, disruptive traffic flow, and Elias's favorite, excessive joy after 9 p.m. The inspector, a wiry man named Hank, stayed long enough to eat 2 helpings of peach pie and lose a round of checkers to the deacons. He left with a grin and a Tupperware of leftovers, muttering, "That Hensley woman needs a vacation." Meanwhile, cracks appeared in Marjorie's ranks. Tim was seen hauling tables for the church's youth lock-in, whistling like he'd never held a clipboard. Ruth dropped off a batch of snickerdoodles with a note. Saw Don't Tell Marjorie. Saw Kyle, grounded from drone duty, started showing up to Teen Movie nights, laughing through Saw Finding Nemo Saw like he'd forgotten his surveillance mission. Even Leonard, Marjorie's stoic deputy and a man obsessed with his ceramic frog collection, began sitting in the back during Sarah VYSS, nodding along to Elias's talks about surrender. Marjorie doubled down, hosting emergency HOA meetings with handouts about spiritual sabotage and bylaws banning disruptive communal VY-BES. Attendance dwindled. Her voice echoed in half-empty rooms. Then came the bombshell. A state auditor, tipped off by a disgruntled neighbor, started digging into the HOA's books. The findings were ugly. Marjorie's mentor, ex-President Vera Klein, had siphoned off $15,000 for phantom PA-VYing projects. Marjorie, as treasurer then, had co-signed every check. The news hit Cedar Hollow like a thunderclap. An emergency vote ousted her from power, pending investigation. Her empire built on rules and righteous fury collapsed overnight. For days, Marjorie vanished, her blinds drawn tight. Then, on a quiet Sunday, she reappeared at church. No disguise, no clipboard, just her, in a plain blouse, sitting in the last row. She stared at the cross as the final hymn faded, her face a mask of quiet unraveling. After the Sarah VYC, Elias found her still there. "I don't know who I am without something to control," she murmured. He sat beside her. "You're not the first to feel that, Marjorie. But here, you don't have to run anything. You just show up." She nodded, wiped her eyes, and whispered, "Okay." The heat was brutal the day the state rolled into Willow Creek, not for the church, but for the HOA. 3 government SUVs parked outside the clubhouse, where Marjorie once reigned. Auditors carted out boxes of files, her legacy reduced to EVY Denke. She sat on the steps, hands folded, looking lost. The neighborhood buzzed, some gloated, others pitted. Elias watched from the church porch, feeling no triumph, only a strange ache for the woman who'd built her life on quicksand. A week later, she returned to the church for Wednesday supper meatloaf night. She hovered in the doorway until Elias waved her in. "Grab a plate or don't, but you're welcome." She sat beside Leonard, who blinked like she'd sprouted wings. They didn't speak, but they shared the silence. Later, in the sanctuary, she opened up. "When my husband left, he took more than his suitcase. He took my trust, said I was too much. I believed him. The HOA gave me rules don't betray you. But I turned it into a cage." Elias nodded. "Cages keep others out, but they trap you too." She laughed, soft and raw. "Karen, just Karen. That's new." At the annual church barbecue, Marjorie arrived with a lopsided peach crisp. When a kid spilled ribs, she helped him up. No lecture, just a napkin and a smile. The mayor cornered Elias. "She's a natural organizer. Think she'd run outreach food drives, cleanups?" Elias glanced at her, laughing with Leonard over lemonade. "If you keep the clipboard away, maybe." Months later, Cedar Hollow softened. Marjorie's HOA newsletters turned chatty, doodled with daisies. She led a lawn care day for seniors, hauling mulch in a sun hat. At church, she sat in the back, a tiny gold star pinned to her blousey, a gift she'd given herself, a quiet symbol of guidance, not control. One Sunday, after a sermon on renewal, she left a note. "So I thought people just broke. I was wrong. Thank you for Leah VYing the door open. Saw." Spring brought the Jubilee music, food, and a dunk tank where Elias took 3 soakings. Marjorie didn't command. She mingled, her laughter mingling with the breeze. Under the oak, she fingered her star. "I led a patrol here once. Froze when I saw your badge." Elias grinned. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I've got my own star and a gate. I finally learned to open. And with that, she stepped into the dusk, a woman remade, one quiet choice at a time. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.